Okay, we were talking about the LEED credit categories, and I said that the integrated process credit, it's a single credit in BD&C to basically do the things we talked about starting early in the process. And again, I have to double check to see what other rating systems that's in, if any. And the textbook I have kind of talks about innovation and regional priorities as perhaps bonus points. The LEED Neighborhood Development System, rating system, or ND, looks a little different than the other rating systems. Again, I don't know that terribly much about it. I've never used it before, but it's going to be talking about different things because we're talking about designing a neighborhood as opposed to designing a individual building or a single building. Within each of those categories, we have both prerequisites and credits. Prerequisites are things that are required, things that you must do. Credits are things that are optional. You can do them. But obviously, to become certified, the project must meet the prerequisites of the rating system and also achieve enough credits based on the level of certification that you're going after, right? So again, the credits are optional, but we still have to earn enough credits to get to, say, 50 points if we want to be LEED Silver, or 60 points if we want to be LEED Gold, or 80 points if we want to be Platinum, right? So even though those credits are optional, you still have to score enough points. Prerequisites are things that you must do. This is the listing, the checklist, the listing of the credits for BD&C, Building Design and Construction, and the first time through I missed that little credit there for integrated process. I have to go back and look and see if it's on the other checklists for the other rating systems. But just to call them out, I put little red arrows there to see what the things that are prerequisites that are mandated. And I'm actually going to open them up in another slide over on the side of my board here so I can see them a little better. Oops. Let me just read through them here, right? So in the case of BD&C under SS, or Sustainable Sites, we have a prerequisite for construction activity pollution prevention. In the case of BD&C, that's probably going to be fencing and protecting of existing trees and vegetation, making sure that there's no runoff from the project site. Water efficiency, building level metering, as well as outdoor and indoor water use reduction. So there's certain levels of performance that are mandated. Under energy and atmosphere, EA, fundamental commissioning and verification, minimum energy performance. So again, there's a minimum level of performance that's required in BD&C, right? So you have to meet a minimum before you get to play. Building level energy metering, right? We want to have a certain amount of meters in the building so we can actually measure performance. Fundamental refrigerant management. In this case, refrigerants has to do with the compounds, the HFCs or HCFCs, the refrigerants that are in the refrigerators and probably the cooling equipment in the building, right? Make sure that those substances that are in those systems are not ozone depleting. We'll talk about that when we get to more details on E&A. Materials and resources, a prerequisite would be storage and collection of recyclables, and construction and demolition waste management planning, right? We want to make sure that the construction project has a means for managing waste during construction. Indoor environmental quality, again, there's a minimum indoor air quality performance. Environmental tobacco smoke control, right, basically has to do with, generally speaking, you're going to either have no smoking inside or have designated spaces for smoking, right? Or in the case of Triton, Triton's a non-smoking campus, so it doesn't matter. I think a lot of entities these days are non-smoking, so you would get that, you would meet that prerequisite right away.
This ain't the 1980s.
Go ahead, Bryn, sorry.
It isn't the 1980s anymore.
No, it is not. No, but you know, some buildings, some places will still make provisions for people that choose to smoke. Generally speaking, those provisions would be a separate room with a ventilation system where the air does not mix with the rest of the air in the building, right? In our state, in Illinois, smoking is banned in lots and lots of indoor spaces. So, but that isn't the case everywhere in the country. You know, I'm always surprised if I travel to another state and find people smoking inside of a restaurant or something. It's always surprising to me, since you know, that doesn't happen in our state, or it's infrequent here. So credits, right? If you look carefully at the spreadsheet on the previous slide, you'll see that all credits are worth at least 1 point. But different credits are weighted differently, and not always worth, you know, some of them are worth more than 1 point. But the important thing is that the credits are weighted depending on how effectively they meet those 7 impact categories, or 7 goals that we saw listed earlier on slide 11 here. And I probably should have put these 2 things back to back, right? So again, this is a system that's trying to drive construction teams to make their buildings greener, to have their buildings reduce human impacts on the environment. So they, you know, when they set the value of these various points, they try to weight them based on the importance of those goals, right? So they measure and scale those credits against the impact that they're trying to achieve, right? How well does that credit drive improvement? Efficacy is how well something works. Duration is how long it lasts, and control would be how much control you have over it. So if we go back to the previous slide, it may be a little hard to see here, but you see the credit with the largest number associated with it is under EA for optimized energy performance, right? So if you have an extremely high performing building from an energy standpoint, you're going to score very well, right? Not that it's easy to get there, but the rating system is recognizing the importance of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, right? That's a very important thing for us to go after. So, you know, that's the credit that has the single largest number of points associated with it, right? Probably second most would be water use reduction, underwater inefficiency. Here again, it's a little hard to see on the slide on the screen. And the other one that scores a lot would be access to quality transit. Again, the rating system is recognizing that greenhouse gases are not only tied up in how much energy the building uses, but also in terms of how much energy it takes to get all the people to the building in the first place. LEED values those strategies that reduce the impacts on climate change and those with the greatest benefit for indoor environmental quality. Water is an invaluable resource, so consumption reduction is weighted appropriately. So again, you know, when they made up the rating system, they tried to award points to the things that they thought were the most important, right? This is a, you know, driving behavior. You know, this is a a rating system that's meant to drive behavior, right? It's meant to drive towards greenhouse gas reduction and the quality of the indoor environment and reduction of water consumption. Each of the rating systems also have what are called minimum program requirements. So some minimum things that you have to meet to get your project certified. So MPR number 1, permanent location. All LEED projects must be constructed and operated on a permanent location on existing land, right? So we're not certifying we're not certifying mobile homes. We're certifying buildings that are built in a permanent location. Sorry, now I have a glass of water next to me here. Reasonable boundaries. The LEED project boundary must include all contiguous land that is associated with the project and supports its typical operations. Contiguous means next to it and supports its typical operations. So in other words, if we're going to draw the boundaries of the project, we also have to include, say, the parking lot, right? We can't draw the boundaries and ignore the parking lot, right? Parking would be part of, or might be part of, the typical operation of the building. So we have to include all those things when we draw the boundaries of our project. And we also have minimum size requirements in terms of the size of the building, right? 1,000 square feet is relatively small in the LEED business, generally speaking. You know, because of the effort involved in getting a project LEED certified, you're generally going to do it on a large-ish building, right? Just because there's a certain investment of time and resources necessary to do this, right? You're going to do it on a decent-sized building. But the LEED system does have minimum size requirements. And the LEED rating system has a couple different kind of boundaries, right? The property boundary line would be the property that's actually owned by the owner of the project. The LEED project boundary line might be different than the property line, right? Let's say that the owner has a large parcel of land and the building only takes up a portion of that parcel. Well, you might draw the LEED boundary line smaller than the property line, but obviously you can't exclude things that are part of the building, right? You can't exclude the parking lot or something that's inconvenient. And then the footprint of the building itself is likely smaller than the LEED boundary, unless you happen to be building right up to the edge of the property line. Okay, so what does the process look like to actually get a building certified? Right, LEED Online is the web-based tool that's used to manage a project seeking LEED certification, right? It's the place that you post information to. Project administrator would be someone on the project team who registers the projects and then controls the access of all the team members to LEED Online. Projects seeking certification are required to utilize LEED Online. Basically, you're going to fill out forms, credit templates online, and upload any supporting documentation. And that same online tool would be where the reviewers, right, those certification boards, where they would look at your material and give you feedback on how you're doing in terms of meeting the various credits. Generally speaking, to get a LEED project certified, you're going to have some kind of plan, right? You have to, have a plan to know where you're going. Right? We talked about the discovery phase last week. Once you have a sense of what it is that let's say what you're going to build or what you're going to do, select the rating system that's appropriate to the project. Make sure you meet those MPR, those minimum program requirements. You're going to set project goals, right? We talked about that earlier. When looking at the questions and answers from last week, project goals should be definable. They should be measurable, quantifiable. Not we want our building to be greener than the building next door, right? That's not a legitimate project goal. We want the building to have an energy consumption of so many BTUs per square foot. That's a legitimate project goal. That's quantifiable. That's measurable. That's verifiable. Want to make sure we know what the scope and the boundary is. Make sure you know what the scorecard is, and then again start the integrative design process. Right, start early, start up front. Maybe have a design charrette to get a lot of ideas on the table about how you're actually going to achieve those goals. Right, we've just set a project goal of having a building use 50% less energy than a reference building. Well, we have to figure out how we're actually going to do that. And then obviously divide up roles and responsibilities in terms of who's going to be responsible for the documentation for various of the different credits. And away you go. So again, the project is registered on LEED Online. Typically the project administrator will determine who is responsible for which things, right? The landscape architect might have certain things that they're responsible to fill out the templates and the documentation. The civil engineer might have different responsibilities. The mechanical engineer might have different responsibilities. In the case of many of the rating systems, there are 2 review steps, right? There is an optional design review. So say if you're doing B, D, and C, you can send your design and have it looked at, but that's optional. But certainly once you finish construction would be when you would normally submit for certification. And obviously it costs money to support all this stuff, so there will be a certification fee that's dependent upon the rating system, the size of the project, corporate membership. That means that certain organizations have a corporate membership with the USGBC, so that reduces the fee that they have to pay. Again, on my last job, we had I worked for one of the large banks, so we had our bank had a corporate membership, and again, it was my job to we had a whole group of buildings that we wanted to get LEED EB certified, so it was my responsibility to look across that portfolio of buildings and choose the ones that were the best candidates to be LEED EB certified, and then manage the process of getting those buildings certified. So part of the way we supported that effort was with the corporate membership. So BD&C and ID&C, right? Those are design-based rating systems, and O&M, or operation and maintenance, has to do with how the building is operated, right? So BD&C and ID&C, a project is certified based on its design and construction as a green building. In O&M, we're certifying it. This is a building that's already been built and is in operation. So we're certifying the building essentially as a snapshot in time. In the case of O&M has what's called a performance period. Performance period is the period of time in which we're going to measure the building's performance. So in the case, one of the components is its Energy Star score. Energy Star score has to do with energy consumption. So to get an Energy Star score, let's say you need a year of utility bills, that would be your performance period, right? O&M has to do also has credits related to recycling. So again, during your performance period, you're going to do measurements of how much waste goes out the door and how much of that waste gets recycled, et cetera, et cetera. So in O&M, you are measuring things over a period of time. In BD&C and ID&C, you're looking at the design and things that happen during the construction process, right? So in BD&C and ID&C, we have this option of the split review, right? We can do a design review as optional, and then obviously the review of the actual building as it's constructed. In the case of O&M, we are submitting for certification after that performance period is completed, right? We've run the clock, we've collected the utility bills to represent our energy performance. We've done our work in terms of totaling up our waste volumes and everything else. So, after that performance is period over is when you would submit an O&M project. So how long does it take, right? How long do various steps of the certification process take, right? You submit things to Lead Online, and the folks on the other end have 25 business days to review their stuff. And if they have questions, you have so many days to reply, and 15 business days for a final review. So it's going to take some time for all these things to go on. So this is not something that's going to happen overnight, but there are time categories set out for how long stuff should take. Any questions? Well, we have 10 minutes left here. We spent a little more time doing the Q&A at the top of the lecture than what I was thinking. So what I'm going to do here is we can do one or two things. If folks have questions, I'll be happy to address questions. I don't want to get going on another lecture here when we only have a few minutes left. So what I was thinking of doing, I did post another set of questions on Blackboard. What I could do is maybe divide you up here and spend 8 or 10 minutes looking at that, just so we are using our time wisely. Either that, or if there's something that folks want me to go through again, I could certainly do that. So your choice. Okay, well, I'm not hearing any